Welcome back to the Let's Talk Baseball podcast. I'm your host, Michael Hurra. Talking about my good friend Jacob Payne. We are excited to get back into the groove of things. Baseball has been pretty good to see. Some very interesting series, some good games. Bellinger's return, I was there. I'm gonna give you the full detail rundown on that awesome day. But yeah, Jacob, how you been feeling, my man? You been watching these games? What do you think of the season?
Mixed reviews, especially on the side of Dodger Baseball Nation. Brutal series against the Cubs. Offense was completely non-existent. Will Smith got a concussion and was ruled out for basically the entire series. Not what you want to see, but also not nothing too concerning. Pitching has looked great. Just cold offense, and when it comes down to that, as long as they wake up going into the next series or two, we'll be okay.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. And so we're gonna start off where we left off, Jacob, last time, where we ended things. Because as I just mentioned to you right now, as we film this, it's got a pretty interesting game going on. We will start out in the AL East in fifth place. Your 8-9 Boston Red Sox, your 9-7 Baltimore Orioles, 10-6 Blue Jays and Yankees, and your 14-2 Tampa Bay Rays. Now we're gonna start from the bottom, Jacob, because Boston had a very impressive series against the Halos, your Halos, who showed their midseason form a little bit in that series. Got the win today, but there are some good outings they by a lot of people, whether it's hitting. Justin Turner got his first bomb in a Red Sox uni, so they've been having some fun over there. Adley Rushman, dude, like what else can you say about this kid? He can be in serious talks down the line for an MVP All-Star catcher. I mean, it's what we expected him to do. Exciting to see that from him. Blue Jays kind of needed to keep their game up, and they did. They had a nice, impressive series. Yankees, they had a really great series, Cole 9 inning shutout. You love to see that. And the Tampa Bay Rays, who lost their first series of the year, lost their first two games of the year against the Blue Jays. You kind of expected this to happen, and a lot of people expected this to happen. So give me a rundown on the AL East, Jacob.
Well, I mean, starting off, like looking at the way things are playing out at the beginning of the season, I think it's very as we expected. We expected the Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays to be at the top of this division. Rays obviously overperforming right now at 14-2 pace. But I don't think that's gonna stick around. We talked about this. They played a very easy schedule the first four series. Going into their fifth series against the Blue Jays, didn't quite turn out the way they wanted it to. Dropping two of those three and currently losing to the Reds, like you said. Um, so we'll see them hopefully come back down to earth and meet the Yankees and Blue Jays at probably a very near, I'm gonna say 16-8 record, I would say is probably where they all kind of meet up there. But looking at this division, man, it's what we expected. We expected a lot of good baseball from these teams, and even from the bottom of these teams, the Orioles and the Red Sox, while they're around 500, they're not by any means slouching right now. Like you said, the Orioles got a good thing going on with Adley Rutschman. That kid, man, he can hit, huh? He's a hitter. Um, Good stuff. Gonna be an interesting upcoming week for the Red Sox in that they have to play the Twins, who are right now at the top of the AL Central, and the Brewers, who are atop the NL Central. So those are gonna be some interesting teams the Red Sox gotta play. Orioles upcoming, quite the easy first five games of this week in that they will be playing the Nationals and the Tigers, and then they will have a meeting with the Red Sox, which I think is going to be a very fun series to watch. Coming in again, we're gonna see the Red Sox at the Orioles, which I think will be a very fun series to pay attention to. The two teams that we figured would be at the bottom of this division squaring off to see who's the better one. So that'll be interesting. Blue Jays, they have quite the schedule. They got to be playing the Astros, who currently haven't playing too well. But they are currently getting absolutely smashed in the second inning, 7-0. Um, not what you like to see as a Blue Jays fan, but I'm sure it's just a one-off. Then they have to go on and play the Yankees, which is going to be, you know, I would say not far off from a likely precursor to an AL championship series. You know, I could very much see that happening. Or at bare minimum an AL divisional matchup. Um, the Yankees relatively easy schedule with the Angels ahead of them, and then the Blue Jays, which I don't know if the stats can back it up, but from what I've seen between Yankees and Blue Jays, I feel like the Yankees have won the majority of those matchups, at least within the last couple of years. But that's just from the eye test for me. I haven't been paying attention to every game, so um, but we'll see about that. And then the Rays. They got another couple of easy matchups here. You got the Reds and the White Sox, which if they don't go 4 for 6 in these next 6 games with these matchups, that's not what you want to see, especially
It's
after the
not
start
what
of
you
their
want to
season.
see. Bottom of the seventh right now. They are losing 5-0. Hunter Green is on the mound, but left early. So there you go, Cincinnati, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. As the Rays, obviously, with the fact that your season started out so well, it's not that big of a deal if you drop a bunch of wins. But against these sorts of teams, these teams that we know are going to be at the bottom of the division, you have to pile up as much wins as you can. We've seen teams not get those wins, and it punished them in the end. And so now's the time where you really got to be like, I've got to get 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3 of these 3 series games. It is not enough. It is not enough to go 1-2 or even worse 0-3 against a team like the Reds or the White Sox. It'll be an interesting upcoming week for these AL East teams. Um, yeah, a lot of baseball to be looking forward to on this end.
For sure. I'm gonna go over the Red Sox real quick because they've been playing some ball. Kike, some guys that are, Kike, we love Kike, but some of the guys that we want to see succeed over there because they are a pretty interesting and kind of fun team aren't actually that doing that well. I mean, if you look at the roster, yeah, you got Devers, who's just a dude, but Tristan Casas, the guy they were depending on, their top prospect, he is struggling. Kike is struggling. Guys like Ramal Tapia, he's actually hitting very well. Justin Turner, right about middle of the pack. Verdugo's doing great. Yoshida, however, is actually struggling since his WBC highlights. Shohei shook him out today. That was a nice little gag clip I got to see. That was pretty cool. But other than that, their offense hasn't been the absolute best. And it's like, okay, well, is the pitching getting them these wins? And the pitching's not getting them these, like, and what I want to say by a landslide, the pitching's absolutely better. I mean, you have a 4.42 for Cutter Crawford. Chris Sale has an 11.25. I'm pretty sure their lowest starting ERA is 4.50 from Garrett Whitlock, which is not what you want to see. But again, beginning of the year, so you can't really say the Red Sox are out of the season, and especially in this division where anybody can climb out because these 5 teams are all really good teams. But I'm a little concerned for the Red Sox going down the line if they are going to continue on the sub of just not clicking. Because let's be honest, I mean, they got a kind of thankful team to play against the Angels and a team that was kind of looking at their downfall. I mean, Tyler Anderson just got whooped. I was like, I mean, that's what happens. It's the Angels effect, but that's what happens. That's happening over in Boston. Let's move back to Baltimore. Like we said, Adley Rushman. This kid is slashing 344, 41, 574 for an OPS of 1.055. What can you say? I mean, they expected him to be good, and I didn't know how good I expected him to be, but he's blowing all expectations right now. Austin Hayes, Ryan Mountcastle. I feel like the offense over there is just clicking on all cylinders. Even Adam Frazier is doing well. Remember him? 2 years removed from an all-star. The one disappointment, or actually two on the offensive side, I would say. One being Anthony Santander after a great WBC showing. And unfortunately, Gunnar Henderson, the rookie, who again, another rookie who was expected to have some a big time season. He's been struggling, a slash line of 178, 373, and a 289 slugging. His slugging is down. The pitching has been a little bit on the side. I mean, Kyle Gibson, your one of your league leaders in wins, by the way, Kyle Gibson, All-Star year maybe. But I mean, I think the highlight of this pitching staff is their bullpen, because when you look at the rotation, I mean, Dean Creamer has a 9.49 ERA, Cole Irvin 10.86, Kyle Gibson 4.18, Grayson Rodriguez 6.91. But that kid has been showing some promise, and I'm so glad they called him up. Felix Bautista, though, dude, Felix Bautista, what a man out of nowhere. And he's just so lights out. Dodgers get him, get him on your radar. But the Orioles, we can see good things to come. And like you said, they have a really easy schedule these next couple of days. And a couple of teams that don't have them in the East, if they can pull out some wins, we could see them atop this leaderboard fighting for their spot in the East. The Jays have been nothing but immaculate over this past weekend. Obviously, lost the rubber match yesterday against the Jays, but they're throwing Shane McClanahan on the mound. And Alek Manoah, unfortunately, is not Alek Manoah of last year. He is struggling. But who's not struggling, Jacob? Matt Chapman with your 719 slugging percentage with a 421 average. Not OPB, average. Matt Chapman. I mean, he's good, but in a contract year, you never know if he's going to come back. Obviously, you'd want him to, but this offense has been nothing short of excellent. Everyone is firing on all cylinders. I had my doubts. You know that for a fact. I've expressed this on the show that I've had doubts about this team, whether they will be able to do it or not. But they've been showing that they can on all cylinders. Even the pitching. I mean, Gossman kind of 7 runs in the first inning today, but it's still been great. Lights out. What you hate to see, however, is Chris Bassett, 7.63 ERA. Same with Barrios, 7.98. You kind of needed that. You needed Barrios to come back. You needed Bassett to come out and bolster that rotation, but you never know. Yankees, they're the Yanks, man. What can you say? I mean, they've been hot. Gleyber's been hot. Who would have thought? Gleyber, Torres come back here. Some guys that are struggling in Volpe, Cordero still hitting all cylinders. Judge has been great, but the pitching, man, the 9-inning shutout from Garrett Cole, from Domingo Herman, who would have thought Nestor Cortez is back. They're getting more and more guys back. Rodon's updates have been great, so you love to see that for them, and it's gonna be a good team. Another actually sad injury update for this team, Jacob. Jeffrey Springs gone at least 2 months. Huge blow to rotation that has already lost Shane Baz and Tyler Glasnow. So like we said, the depth of teams are going to be tested, but the Rays are going to Ray, as people say, and they have been pretty much lights out. Brandon Lau is amazing. Yandy Diaz, amazing. Wander Franco, amazing. Randy Arozarena, amazing. Even Christian Bethancourt. I don't know where Christian Bethancourt. They lost Mike Zunino, and Christian Bethancourt's like, you know what? I'm just going to put out like an all-star year, just like casually. But that's kind of what the Rays do. So that's that's the East. But let's move on to the Central, where as we mentioned, the Twins are ahead in the lead 10-6. Cleveland behind 9-7. The White Sox 6-10. Your Chicago White Sox. Yeah, that's not what you want to see. 5-9 Detroit Tigers. 4-12 Kansas City Royals. Obviously, you got the Miggy walk off the other day. That was awesome to see for them. But Jacob, are the Twins just gonna roll out, and are they gonna win this, or are they gonna sell this like last year? Is there really any competition?
Look, we preface this team, this division, exactly how it's playing out so far. I mean, minus the Twins and Guardians we thought would be swapped, but I mean that's what we're seeing, right? We're seeing the Twins and Guardians at the top of the game right now. We're seeing the White Sox bottom out like we figured they would, and we're seeing the Tigers and Royals be the Tigers and Royals. I mean, it's not a big surprise where these teams are landing on currently on the leaderboard. Now, will that continue through the season? We'll see. But I mean, I would say there are zero surprises on this board right now. Are the Twins playing well? Yeah, yeah. I mean, we kind of half expected that, but we also suspected that this was going to be an awful division. And so even they don't even need to be playing that well to be at the top. The Guardians are right behind them at 9-7. Um, Granted, I mean, like I said, small sample size, but just kind of what we expected. And seeing from the Twins, they shouldn't be slowing down. They're going to be playing the Red Sox, which I would say they probably have a pretty decent advantage over. Um, assuming everybody's healthy and firing on all cylinders, and then they get to play the Nationals. I mean, that's the series where if you aren't winning 2 out of 3, you're losing. You lost, big time lost. Um, the Guardians, they're playing strong baseball. They're not overly impressive. They're not super dominant wins. Um, but really, I mean, really good games, really close games. 3-5 against the Mariners. They lost that, but 3-5, that's a close game. Lost 2 out of 3 against the Mariners. Won 7-6. Won 3-2 against the Yankees. Kind of got blown out against the Yankees 2-11, but then brought it back to another close game 3-4. Like these are good games against good teams. You can get blown out once every couple games. That's fine. Whatever. And especially if it's against a good team, really not going to set you back whatsoever. But the rest of these games, close games, wins and losses, I mean, they're, let's see, one game since the beginning of the year, one game, um, that has been bigger than a 2-run difference either way. I mean, a lot of close games. That's that at least that makes for a lot of interesting baseball. At least as a Guardians fan, if you're a baseball fan, you've been enjoying watching a bunch of close games. I'm sure you've been on the edge of your seat and stressing beyond belief, but at least there's good baseball. Um and their upcoming series against the Tigers should be a dominant series, a doubleheader on the 18th. So that'll be interesting. But I mean, if you could take one or two of the doubleheader, and hopefully the other 2 games, maybe one of those 2, and split the series or get 3-1, that's solid for the Guardians. Then they're going to be playing the Marlins and the Rockies, which Marlins, honestly, at this point, as long as you don't get faced up against Alcantara, you're fine. Which actually, I don't know if you've been paying attention. He has
He's
got rocked.
yeah,
He has
yeah.
got absolutely rocked since his shutout, which I thought was very interesting. And not something you normally see. And then the Rockies, they're the Rockies. One of those teams you just don't expect much from. So, um, really, the Guardians and the Twins are set up to have really good next week or so. And we should be seeing them be very close to each other in the rankings for the foreseeable, next few weeks. White Sox, on the other hand, they have a fun schedule coming up. They have to play the Phillies, who have yet to play very well yet, but are still a good team nonetheless. And then they have to play the Rays, which is not going to be fun for them. Assuming the Rays are back to playing good baseball, it's not going to be a fun series for them. They can make things interesting and beat up on the Rays, and kind of fuel the storyline that I was outputting last week. Um, but we'll see how that goes. The Tigers, I don't think they're gonna have any good matchup unless they play the Royals or the Nationals or the Athletics. They got to play the Guardians and the Orioles. That's not fun. That's not gonna be a fun next week. And honestly, it's really, I mean, you as the Tigers organization has to make the most of playing baseball, and so you're gonna have to enjoy your time to some extent. There's gonna be a lot of losses this season. I mean, a lot of losses. Um, so we'll see how that goes. And then to round it out with the Royals, they got to meet the Rangers, which currently the Rangers are winning 4-0 in the 6th inning, in today's game. And you figure the Rangers should be taking at bare minimum 2 out of 3 of those games. And then the Angels, which, we know the Angels. Are they the best team in the league? Are they the worst team in the league? Um, Kind of depends on what Angels team you get on each day. But we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting week for those 2 teams especially.
Speaking of the Angels, this is around this time last year is when they started their 14 game losing streak. So you never know. Will history repeat itself as we move into the West? The 3-13 Oakland Athletics, the 7-9 Houston Astros, the 8-8 Seattle Mariners and Los Angeles Angels, and the Texas Rangers at 9 and 6. Oakland, again, we're not gonna hear a lot of Oakland unless we get some rookie that's showing off or something, or they move to Vegas. The only recent hurt news I've heard of anything from Oakland was that fans might reverse boycott the games by getting fans to go to them. I don't even know if that. I know that if that's true. Okay, another hurt. I don't know if you heard, Jacob, but a raccoon is living in the away team's
A possum.
walls. A possum.
It's the possum.
It's a
Yeah.
possum. My bad. But like, still, what can you do? What can you do when that's happening to your team, man? Just it's not great to see. The Astros, they have not been as dominant as they would. What is the source of their problems? I don't know. I mean, the offense isn't necessarily clicking, but there's guys who are still doing it. Same with the pitching. So you never know. We're gonna talk a little bit about that. The Mariners are finally coming back after a nice series with the Rockies. How about my Cy Young pick, Luis Castillo? Amazing, amazing. He's been great. The Angels dropped quite a little few games against the Red Sox. They got owned. Anderson has not been what they've expected. Their pitching, as usual, is not the best. And then we got the Rangers, who have been dominant, who won this series against their division rivals, the Astros. So Jacob, take me through the West. Who surprised us? And how is Can Texas? We've seen their promise. We've seen them play a great series against Houston. Can they keep it up?
Well, I would say the surprise is that so far, the top teams in the division that we thought were going to be the top teams are playing a little bit under, and the lower echelon teams in this division are playing a little bit over, which is really interesting. I mean, you've got 4 teams within 2 games of each other. You got the Rangers at 9 and 6, Angels, Mariners both at 8 and 8, and the Astros at 7 and 9. That's wild to me. I mean, you would think if that's flipped, I mean completely flipped, you would think, okay, this is gonna be a good division. Like they're at least playing well. Everybody's playing well. Everybody's kind of on par with how we thought. The Astros being at 7-9, a little surprising. Again, not too much of a scare yet because we're right at the beginning of the season, but a little bit surprising. Not at 500, not playing terribly good baseball. Kind of got owned by the Rangers. Um, really, really interesting scenes, and I really hope we continue to see this because a very competitive AL West will spell what we've been seeing in the NL, right? It'll spell that very, very close race with the NL West, and to see that in the AL West, I think will just make things a lot more fun for baseball. I love seeing competitive divisions, and it's really fun to see, especially when they have to beat up on each other. And then, one of the other teams can sneak ahead by playing a different team and get and sweep the win. So it's going to be interesting to see how this division plays out, and if we can see the Rangers and the Angels. Now, obviously, as a Dodgers fan that wants to see Shohei Ohtani go to the Dodgers by the trade deadline, I hope the Angels bottom out and don't do anything. But as a baseball fan, to see the Angels and Rangers playing good baseball and playing competitive baseball would be amazing.
Speaking of the Rangers right now, Jacob, just before you add anything, guess who just left the Rangers game early with wrist tightness?
Oh, good lord! Tell me it's not Jacob Degrom.
It's Jacob DeGrom, Jacob.
Oh,
It is it is
what did I tell you at before the season started? I said if you're the Rangers, you're only going after this dude because you can tackle his health issues. We know that he has health issues. He hasn't had a full healthy season since like 2019. It's ridiculous. It's not. You can't go out and sign a glass cannon like that if you're a team looking to compete. That's why I thought the Mets would definitely get rid of him because they were really competing and they couldn't rely on a dude who was out like half the year. And they dished him out for Justin Verlander, who has been on the IL so far, but has a history of being really, really healthy and reliable. Can't say the same about the Grom. So I can't say that I'm surprised, but we'll see how much this impacts them. I would imagine that this has a heavy impact, but so far the starters haven't been doing that incredible. It's really been the offense kind of carrying these wins. So we might not see much of an impact at all as long as the offense continues to to hit stride. So we'll see. But um, so talking about schedules upcoming this upcoming week, the Rangers are going to have a very fun next 3 series as they play the Royals, the Athletics, and the Reds. They have a very Tampa Bay Rays esque line of scheduling, which will should I mean at worst you should be winning 7 out of those 9 games. At worst, if you don't, that's bad. If you win 6 of those games, not great. If you win 5 of those games, really not great, and anything less than that, fire alarms should start going off. I mean, I know we're gonna be missing Jacob deGrom in this, in these next few series, but that should not be an issue against these teams. It's not like they have very dominant pitching, and it's not like they have very dominant offenses either. So, um, within those next 9 games, if we don't see 7 out of 9 wins, um, maybe we start putting up some question marks on those on this Texas Rangers season. The Angels, man, the Angels, man. I mean, we've we've been we've been in the confused boat for the Angels for the longest of time periods. So they're gonna have probably 3 losses coming up against the Yankees, which I mean realistically, the Yankees are just a better put together team. If the Angels can play well, if they can take a game off the Yankees, that's great. Anything above that is gravy. Absolutely gravy. If you could take 2 or 3, 3 or 3, that's I mean, that's more than you can ask for. But if you can take one of the games from the Yankees, that's par. That's what you're looking for against teams like them. Um, then you're gonna play the Royals and the Athletics in 7 games. 3 against the Royals, 4 against the Athletics. You gotta go back in and you gotta take like 3 or 4 from the Athletics. I mean, beginning of the season against the Athletics was on par. Some games they absolutely demolished the Athletics. Some games they let go, and that's not what you want to be seeing against a team that should be competing in the AL West. We should be seeing, you know, on on the very glass half full side of things, we should be seeing. I'm gonna say 7 wins out of their next 10 games. Um, anything less than 5, we're really in bad territory. Um, the Mariners, they are gonna have a fun schedule coming up playing against these central teams in the Brewers and the Cardinals. Um, it's those should be really good series to watch, honestly. I know the Cardinals aren't playing that well so far, but especially against the Brewers, Mariners, Brewers, I mean that's that's a very I think it's a long shot, but it's a possibility that we could see as like a wild card, a World Series type matchup. I mean, the Brewers are playing really well right now, and the Mariners we thought were pretty solid and a pretty likely candidate for making a deep run in playoffs. So that could be a precursor to a possible World Series matchup. Who knows? We'll see if the Brewers continue to play well. The Astros, they're gonna have a rough line ahead of them in that they will be playing the Blue Jays, the Braves, and the Rays for their next 9 games. And especially with an Astros teams that's struggling, that could be brutal. That could be brutal, especially if they can play 500 ball against these 3 teams and get 4 to 5 wins out of these next 3 series, I would say they're not bad. And looking at this game that's going on right now, 7-1, Houston, that's a great start. A great start to that stretch. So we'll see, but that should be a very brutal stretch for the Astros, and we could see them fall. even further in this divisional rank. Oh, I'm sorry, not fall further, but stay down on these rankings. And last but not least, well, last and least, the Athletics got to play the Cubbies, who have been looking really good against the Dodgers. Now, granted, the Dodgers did not look good against the Cubs, but their pitching looked pretty good. Their offense looked pretty good, and that's probably going to be a brutal series for them. Then they got to play the Rangers and the Angels. Rangers, realistically, we shouldn't see them taking any of those games, but we'll see. And against the Angels, if the Angels play like the Angels should be playing, they should take no more than one game from that series. But then again, who knows? I mean, especially with divisional matchups, we have seen some very interesting divisional matchups in the past few years, where teams that we do not think have a chance of winning can take 2 out of 3. And so we'll see. But it's gonna be some fun stuff seeing how the next 2 weeks play out in the AL West.
For sure, for sure. Coming up on your 30 game mark to see where teams are at. It's gonna be fun to see. Let's stay in the West and the NL. Not too much to cover. A little bit of points here and there. Giants and Rockies. I mean, well, Rockies are 5-11. Giants are 5-9. Not a lot to say about them. The Giants, man, what is you doing? I mean, looking at there. I mean, how do you can't drop a game with the Tigers? You just can't. And Taylor Rogers, I know that was a big free agent signing for them, but he has been struggling, and that's what you hate to see for them. Hey, Logan Webb extension though, 90 years, 90. I'm sorry, 90 million, 5 years. The little short extension, that's good for them. San Diego 8-9, Dodgers 8-8, in Arizona, who's winning their game against the Cardinals right now, 1-8, 1-0. They're 9-7, and the Diamondbacks, time and time again, have been amazing. Granted, they dropped a couple against the Marlins, but whooped Sandy Alcantara. Absolutely rocked him, and that's what you love to see for the Marlins. But as a Diamondbacks fan, hey, you just beat up last year's Cy Young. That's got to give you some confidence, especially going into the series with the Cardinals, who haven't been playing that great. If you keep that up, I could see them sweeping the Cardinals, and that's just me. But I don't know, man. The Dodgers, not a couple impressive games. Bellinger, first the game back, obviously dropped it 8-2, which was rough. It sucked, but the team didn't win that night, but the fans did. I was there. It was an amazing experience. I was in center field sitting next to him. I pointed at Bellinger. He pointed at me. It was the best thing ever. I may have cried. I may have shed a tear or two. Who's to say? It's all rumors. But yeah, Jacob, the Dodgers and the Padres not atop of the West. Can we see this Diamondbacks team really make a full run? Can the Padres step it out? They got a little bit of a interesting schedule ahead of them.
So I do want to start with a funny little tidbit. I don't know if you watched in the Dodgers Giants game where Taylor Rogers just absolutely imploded, threw his glove away in the trash. Um, I I just thought that was hilarious. I mean, talk about a frustrating bout where you just cannot throw strikes to the first few batters, and then you have to get up against Freddie Freeman, who takes you to a 15 pitch battle, which ends in another walk. Oh man, brutal. I mean, brutal scenes. Like, that's where you go back to the back of the dugout, you take a chicken, you just cut its head off, try to do a little seance, and try and get unhexed because somehow you got witchcrafted. Bad news. I mean, he could not throw a strike to save his life, man. And they were not competitive pitches. It's not like they were close to the zone. It was a brutal inning for him. And a tough series for the Giants. Yeah, I mean, we look at the Giants and the Rockies. We kind of expect a little bit more from the Giants, but currently, beginning of the season, still not gelling. That's not too worrying for them. Rockies, we really expected this, and honestly, we probably won't be seeing too much difference from the Rockies. I imagine they're probably going to end up at about a 350 win percentage by the end of the season. Plenty of losses. Dodgers Padres, are they playing under? Yeah, absolutely they are. Is it too worrying right now? Not really. At least in the eyes of the Dodgers and the Padres, they're still ramping up to the season. Um,
Padres ramping up to Thursday, April 20th. The return of El Nino. We will be filming Probably during that time, during that game. So it'll be interesting. We might see a little bit of commentary about Tatis's return that day.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's hit like 500 home runs in the last 3 games, 3 or 4 games. That's what I read somewhere. Quite the statistic. Yeah. Um, so is it really worrying? No, no. But it'll be interesting to see how this continues. The Diamondbacks obviously playing really great baseball right now. Are they going to stay at the top of the division? Realistically, no, I don't think so. Are they playing great right now? Yes. Do they have potential to get into that wild card spot? Yeah, absolutely they do. 100%. Do they even have potential to take uh the title of the NL West? I think they do. I would say it's not a very high potential, but considering how well they've played so far, assuming they continue, their starting pitching gets better because it definitely needs to. And their offense stays how they've been playing, and they can stay healthy. They got a decent shot at it. I mean, I'm not going to be arrogant enough to say that the Dodgers and the Padres own that title. At least as of right now, I think they're the way they're looking right now, they're kind of vulnerable. Is it going to stay that way? I don't think so, but we'll see when this season plays out. The Diamondbacks, they are going to have a fun schedule playing the Cardinals and the Padres. Um, they should they should be able to play those series pretty well. I figure they probably take 2 or 3 of the Cardinals and probably 2 out of 4 from the Padres. If they split the games with the Padres, I mean that's great. That should be a win in their category. If they are playing the West teams and they split the series, at least the West teams being the Padres and the Dodgers, you are golden. And any more than that is gravy. And then they're going to be playing the Royals. So the next looks like 10 games. Um, Pretty interesting for them. After this stretch with the Cardinals and the Padres, they will go on to play the Royals and the Rockies, which should set them up for 4 to 6 wins, depending on how well they're playing. The Dodgers, man, that was an embarrassing series against the Cubs. I mean, I'm not gonna say that the Cubs didn't play well, but man, did the Dodgers play horribly. Their offense was non-existent for the entire series. I mean, quite embarrassing. And honestly, they did not deserve the win, the walk-off win. Their offense was shut down for 8 and 2/3 innings. It was embarrassing. Um, I hope that changes tonight against the Mets because it's going to need to if they want to stand a chance at taking those Mets games.
Speaking of offenses coming back for the Dodgers, a guy who has been hitting relatively well, 2 bombs in that series, Jacob. CT3. 4 of his 5 hits have been bombs. So against the lefty tonight, I think he is in the lineup. If we can see him come back with Muncy the way he's hitting, that can rejuvenate this lineup. And hopefully, man, hopefully we can see this Dodgers team be the dominant word. I mean, granted, a couple years ago they had a rough April, May, and they ended up winning 106 games. But still, you never know. So
Yeah, and that's why I'm not really too worried about it. Is the offense going cold? Yeah, I mean they absolutely are. We saw them get shut out against the Giants, which really should not have happened. You shouldn't be getting shut out against the Giants right now, especially against an Alex Wood that only went like 4 innings. That's a shame that you are getting shut out by a majority bullpen game. Um, Against the Cubbies, they just could not get anything going. Again, nothing to take away the Cubs because they played that series great, but it was really frustrating that last inning against the Cubs. Um, the 3 strikeouts that were not in the zone. I'm not going to say that that's why they lost it because there were plenty of opportunities that the Dodgers should have won,
but if
but
they were
man,
balls, it
was
would have
that
been
frustrating.
bases loaded, one
Man, was that
out.
frustrating. Hayward's pitch was never a strike. Never. It was so far inside. It was about 6 inches inside and almost hit him. And that ball was called a strike. Whatever. I sound like a salty Dodger fan. Honestly, I truly am not that upset about it. Am I a little bit upset? Yeah, absolutely. I think anybody watching their team getting called out on third strikes that are just not strikes are going to be upset about it. But we did not lose that game because of the umpire. We lost that game because the offense was god awful. In fact, it should have been 3-1. That extra second run was a God given miracle because Seiya Suzuki lost in the sun. Whatever. Moving on. Playing against the Mets, ideally should be a tough series. Should be a great series, honestly. That's probably if you're looking at all the teams, that's one of those series that you're circling and saying, "I can't wait to watch that one."
Kersh going
Um,
for his 200th win tomorrow.
let's go,
Hey,
200
let's
career
talk
wins, hopefully.
let's talk baseball vlog. Going to the game tomorrow.
No, it should be a great series, ideally, and this is assuming that both teams are playing well. We've seen the Mets not play very well. We've seen the Dodgers not play very well. Let's hope both teams show up, and let's hope, obviously, for the sake of baseball fans, let's hope it's close games and fun games. Um, for a Dodgers fan, I'd like to see them get absolutely blown out and not even make it a competition against the Mets, but you know. I can only hope. And then we get to play the Cubbies again. Oh, yay. That went well the first time. At the Cubs, so that'll be interesting. Um, yeah, they got to show up with a better offense. I mean, to put it lightly, the pitching, while it wasn't perfect, it was pretty good over the series. So the pitching, as long as they stay relatively consistent, that offense has got to show up. The Padres, the Fathers, they are going to have an interesting series coming up with the Braves. Um, a rematch of the NLDS that we saw. Um, that should be a good series. I mean, realistically, it really should be. Against the D-backs, it should be a tough series, especially with the way that the Diamondbacks are playing, assuming they continue that streak, and then they get to meet the Cubbies for the first time this season. Realistically, if the Padres offense is there, it really should be competition. But it'll be interesting to see because we've been seeing the same thing with Padres that we've been seeing with other top teams, is that the offense is really, really there or really, really not. So we'll see. The Giants, I hate even saying their name. Just kidding. They get to meet the Marlins. Dropping a game against the Marlins, not that big of a deal if you could take the next two. But if you're going to drop two or three of the Marlins or more, that's not great. They get to play against the Mets, which I'm sure is going to go very poorly for the Giants, at least on paper. You'd imagine that. And then against the Cardinals, who are also not playing very well. So hopefully, for the sake of the Giants, if they can take two or three of the Marlins and two or three of the Cardinals, that's not a bad stretch. Or sorry, two of four against the Cardinals. Not a terrible stretch, especially if you can get a win or two out of those four games against the Mets. Um, but not a very easy stretch that the Giants are going to be going through. And then we end up with the Rockies, who are going to be playing the Pirates, Phillies, and Guardians, which, I mean, they are getting smashed by the Pirates right now.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yikes. For
Uh,
Kyle Freeland, too. That you hate to see that. He's having an
you
amazing
really
season.
hate to see that because he is your one shining light right now. And he's getting teed off of, and that's not great. The Pirates, great team. Obviously, we're gonna talk about them, but they're a solid team. They're as solid as they've ever been in the past. You know, I've going on 10 seasons probably. Um, a young team, not very experienced, but very fun, very energetic, very very good ball players. Jiwon Bay, man, that kid has been a stud so far. I mean, really kind of came out of nowhere for me. I can't say that I've heard his name before until this season, and I've been hearing it a lot so far. Phillies, obviously, we talked about them not kind of playing iffy baseball right now. So if the Rockies can play 500 ball these next three series, they're looking good. They're at least looking okay.
Let's move on to the Central, where not a lot to cover, but actually some good games to cover. A good game happening right now with the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks. Cardinals tied it, but then of course Ketel Marte just went in the head and said no and hit a homer, which is what you hate to see as a Dodger fan. But as a baseball fan, go D-backs. 6-9 Cincinnati Reds. Last time they're green today. Kind of really my only note. Nick Lodolo is still doing great, but hopefully Hunter Green isn't anything too serious. And you beat the Rays today, so congrats, claps to you. That's a really tough ask for a team for the Reds. The Cardinals 7-9. You really hope to split the series with the Pirates. Granted, Pirates are 9-7 right now and are doing amazing. But you really hope for the sake of your team right now that you guys can come back. That the pitching, like you said, Jacob, this depth is going to be tested, and we've definitely seen that. And will it keep getting tested? Absolutely. New bars back, yay. But the depth is still a question. Pirates 9-7. Go Bucks. They've been amazing. They workers are going on strike in a couple of days. I don't know if you saw that, so that will be interesting. But yeah, go Pirates. Besides the fans, the workers. Hopefully that thing gets all sorted out. Cubs obviously to take 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. Their offense has been amazing. Happ has been great. Suzuki has been great since he came back. Yan Gomes, man, Wilson Contreras, who left them, has been struggling with the Cardinals, but Yan Gomes has been hitting, has been feeling pretty. Patrick Wisdom, wow, what a series against the Dodgers. By the way, I just want to let you know that Bellinger is slashing 310 as an average since his series against the Reds, but you love to see as a baseball fan. And of course the Brewers, who are 11-5, and it looks like that besides the Cubs, because we are beginning to see a little bit of that Pirates downfall right now that the Brewers can, I think, easily walk away with this division, especially if the Cardinals keep playing like they do. But give me a rundown of these top 3 teams, because the Cardinals, I mean, what can you say? They had some good outings, they had some bad outings against the Pirates, but the Pirates, hey, for them to be able to fight back and keep it close, this Central may not be so mid in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously with the Brewers, we weren't expecting this. We were expecting them to play a little bit less. We were expecting them to give up the top seed to the Cardinals once again. And that's kind of what we were expecting. And what we're getting so far is far from what we expected, other than the Reds being at the bottom. That was definitely expected. Everything else, I would say is quite unexpected. We're seeing the Cardinals play not great. And it's in fact it's what we had talked about at the beginning of the season. Their depth is really an issue right now. Um, the Pirates, that fun baseball team, man, we're seeing a lot of great games from them. A lot of close wins, a couple of comeback wins too. A walk off here and there. Great stuff. Fun team. Great to follow. The Cubs, are they playing well right now? Yes. Will that continue? That is to be seen. I am still not sold on this Cub team. I know they're sitting at the second spot right now. I personally don't think that's going to stick. But we will see. We will see. They're playing great right now. They played great against the Dodgers. Their offense wasn't incredible other than the first game, but they did enough. They did enough to take 2 or 3. And honestly, as the Cubs, that's all you needed. You did not need that third game. In fact, 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers was more than you probably expected going into realistically. Um, and the Brewers, man, they're playing great baseball right now. They really, really are. And like you mentioned last week, it's at the forefront of those rookies really performing. I mean, a lot of names that I didn't hear about, preseason much talk. I don't know if you did. But a lot of talk about guys that I just really I think everybody kind of overlooked, and I think those rookies kind of went out and said, "We'll show you why you should be talking about us." Um, and those kids have been going off well. Uh, this series, as we're looking at it for the Brewers, their next few opponents are consist of the Mariners, Red Sox, and Tigers. If they could play a good series against the Mariners and the Red Sox, that's great. The Tigers shouldn't be an issue, but you never know. The Cubs, they get to play the Athletics for the next 3 games. Should sweep all 3 of those. And then the Dodgers and Padres. Again, if we're playing 500 against those teams, great. That's more than you can ask for. Um, that's more than enough for the Cubbies during that stretch. The Pirates, they get the likes of the Rockies and the Reds for the next 7 games, which ideally for this Pirates team, they should have no problem taking 6 of those games, maybe 7. Realistically, they shouldn't because they're playing like they're not a bottom team, and I want to see that from them. And so they should take most, if not all, of those games away from those bottom teams. Then they get to see the Dodgers for the first time this season. Um, a tough series. If you can take a game or two, great, absolutely great on the Pirates spectrum. So we'll see from them. The Cardinals obviously have been struggling, playing against the D-backs, who are a tough team right now. Get to play against the Mariners, another tough team, and then get to play against the Giants, which the Giants are struggling too. If they can kind of gain their footing a little bit, take 3 or 4 of those games, they'll go into the series against the Dodgers after that, feeling a little bit better about themselves. But this, depending on how that Giants series plays out, and obviously the first 2 series, this could get really bad for the Cardinals really quick. I mean, you're playing against the D-backs, Mariners, and Dodgers next. Let's see, we got 9 games out of the next 13 against really tough teams. So if you can't play 500 ball against those and can't take those 3 or 4 against the Giants, we're gonna be looking at the Cardinals really sinking down into that 4th spot. And depending on how the Reds play, which let's see what their schedule looks like. Rays, Pirates, Rangers. Okay, they'll probably be down there too. So at least you got that going for you. But it's gonna look a little scary for the Cardinals. Yeah, I foresee their record getting worse before it gets better. If it gets better and they play over 500 ball against these next few teams, then that's good for them. Um, but I don't foresee that happening. And then to touch on the Reds, Rays, obviously a great team. They got a big win today. That was a big win. If they can steal another one from the Rays, that's great. If they can steal 2 from the Pirates and maybe 1 from the Rangers, then they're performing at about as expected. Anything more than that is great for them. So we'll see for these central teams.
And last but not least, of course, let's go to the East. And in the East, ooh, are some teams having fun, Jacob? And are some teams not? Obviously, referring to the Washington Nationals, who had a less than average series against the Guardians. Phillies, the Guardians are. I mean, the Nationals are 5-11. Sorry, the Phillies are 6-10. Miami Marlins at 8-8. Hate to see Sandy Alcantara getting rocked, but their offense is looking pretty nice. The Mets at 10-6. Little they've won 4, granted, but some of these, and granted they were playing the Athletics, but some of those games are a lot closer, so much closer than they should have been. So that's a point of question. The Braves, they're atop of the MLB's power rankings right now, number 1, the 12 and 4 spot. They've won 6 in a row, and the Braves have just been nothing short of dominant. We kind of wrote them off a little bit because we thought really the Mets and Phillies were going to run this on, because on paper I feel like they should, but the Braves keep doing what they're doing and the best, and being one of the best organizations in baseball. They've been hitting. Matt Olson's been great. There's so many guys for them clicking. Max Fried comes back today against the Padres, hoping that he can take sale. But yeah, it's gonna be a great couple games, especially against these Astros and Padres coming up against the Braves. A rough schedule, but if they keep playing like this, they can easily take that. So some guys that are actually I want to talk to you about for Philadelphia before you have to go. Um, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber have obviously been doing it. The pitching has not been doing it. That's a big question for them. Horrible. I feel bad. But the guys who are doing it for some of these teams, Jacob, are the guys you would not expect. How about your Brandon Marsh 700 slugging percentage? How about your Bryson Stott 380 average? All right, is it rookie time in the East? Obviously, Francisco Alvarez and Brett Beatty got called up for the Mets but ahead of this series. So yeah, take us to the East, Jacob.
So I want to start this off by talking about the Braves a little bit like I talked about the Rays last week. Okay? I know they're playing very great baseball, and not to take anything away from that, but let's consider all the facts. Let's see the teams that they've played recently. The Washington Nationals, the struggling St. Louis Cardinals, the Padres, who they dropped 3 of 4 to, the Reds, and the Kansas City Royals. Okay? So are they playing well? Yes, absolutely. Do they have a great record? Yes, absolutely. But let's consider the teams that they're playing right now. And so far, they've had a very Rays-esque stretch of teams where they haven't needed to play too much. And against the only other good team that they've played against, they dropped 3 of 4. Um, and 2 of those games weren't terribly close. They won a close game in the first game of the series 7-6. Then they lost a close game 4-5. Then they lost 1-4, and then they got blown out 2-10. So uh, I wouldn't consider them at the top of the power rankings personally, but nonetheless, I mean, again, not to take away from anything, they are still 12-4, and that's a tough feat. Even if you are playing against good teams, it's still tough to play perfect baseball against. So nothing to take away from that. But they're playing the Padres again. They're going to play the Astros. They're going to play the Marlins, and then they're going to play the Mets. Um, so you figure against the Padres, they can have a little score against a score to settle. If they can take 2 or 3 there. The Astros struggling a little bit right now. Let's see if that continues, and if it does, then the Braves should be set up perfectly playing against the Astros and the Marlins. So the Marlins aren't playing that well right now. And then the Mets, who again aren't playing terribly great baseball. So on paper, 3 of those teams are good, but kind of struggling right now. Not perfect, not perfect. The Mets, who we just talked about, kind of struggling, get to play the Dodgers, the Giants, the Nationals, and the Braves. And so you figure Dodgers probably going to be a tough season, a tough series. Take, split those 2-1, 1-2 some way. The Giants, they should be. I mean, realistically, they should be sweeping those Giants. If not 3 out of 4. The Nationals should be sweeping them three games out of 3, and the Braves should be another tough, good series. But we'll see. The Marlins, the Marlins, man, they're an interesting team to be talking
Interesting
about
team.
right now.
Jesus Lizardo, Lizard Man, and he's been clutch for them right now.
Yeah, and obviously Araya is being the top of the power rankings for hitters. That kid's very dominant right
Jesus,
now.
stud.
We're gonna see the Giants. The Marlins are gonna see the Giants for another 2 games, the Guardians for 3, and then the Braves for 4. Um, if they can take the next 2 from the Giants, then they're sitting pretty because the Guardians and Braves, and then the Cubbies after that. Um, you're probably not going to see too many wins throughout those series because all 3 of those teams are playing pretty well right now. The Phillies been underperforming currently. They have some leeway with the teams that they're playing next in the White Sox and the Rockies. They should be taking all of those games. Realistically, at most dropping 1. I seriously, it's really those are not good teams. We should be seeing 6 out of 7 wins of those 7 games. Then they get to play the Mariners, who have been playing pretty well, and then the Astros, who have been a little bit struggling. So we'll see how those games go. But realistically, the Phillies should have a decent stretch to catch up in the win column. And then the worst team in baseball,
The
the
Washington
Washington
Nationals.
Nationals. They get to get beat up against the Orioles, most likely, then the Twins, then the Mets. Um, do I see any wins coming out? Realistically, yeah, probably 1. But on paper, no. The Orioles are playing great right now. The Twins are playing great right now. And the Mets, while they aren't playing great, are still leaps and bounds ahead of this Washington Nationals team. So within the next 8 games, will there be a win for the Nationals? Maybe. Should there be? No, not absolutely not. But we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be a very interesting week of baseball. And Jacob, the Diamondbacks, Grand Slam, 6-1 against the Cardinals right now. Bottom of the 9th, Rangers are looking to get the shutout for it's a 4-0. Still 8-1 against the Blue Jays and a 9-0 Pirates. So it's gonna be an interesting week of baseball. Thank you for joining us on this Monday night episode of Let's Talk Baseball. We will be back Friday with a lot of interesting series that we previewed for you today and for the weekend. So this will be one of the better weeks of baseball. Again, like we said, your 30-game mark coming up. We'll see are the Astros still down, are the Diamondbacks still going, are the Twins and the Pirates and the Cubs still going? Find out. We'll find out soon. Thank you for joining us. Let's Talk Baseball. I'm your host, Michael Herrera, joined by my good friend and co-host Jacob Payne, and we will see you next time.